Commander Lee fidgeted with the sleeve of his formal uniform as he waited in the gleaming conference room of the Pathfinder *. The ship's most impressive space had been prepared meticulously for this historic moment. First contact with the Viridian species. Soft blue lighting mimicked Earth's sky, a careful choice meant to create a welcoming atmosphere. Steady breathing, Commander, whispered Min, his second in command. The Admiral said these aliens are peaceful explorers, just like us. Lee nodded but couldn't shake his nervousness. Humanity had encountered only 3 other intelligent species in their galactic exploration. Each meeting had shaped decades of interstellar policy. The door slid open with a soft hiss. The human delegation straightened as the Viridians entered. They were taller than humans, with slender bodies that moved with unusual grace. Their skin wasn't simply one color but seemed alive with subtle patterns that rippled and shifted like oil on water. Most striking were their eyes, large, luminous, and somehow ancient-looking. Admiral Park had briefed them thoroughly. Maintain respectful distance, follow prepared protocols, stick to approved conversation topics. Years of linguistic analysis had created a basic translation system, but cultural nuances remained a mystery. The lead Viridian stepped forward. Unlike her companions, who wore simple silver garments, her attire featured intricate geometric patterns. The translator in Lee's ear identified her as Ta, cultural emissary of the 7th sphere. Lee bowed slightly. On behalf of Earth's United Coalition, we welcome you aboard the Pathfinder *. We hope this meeting marks the beginning of friendship between our peoples. The translation device rendered his words into musical tones. Ta tilted her head, listening. The patterns on her skin pulsed subtly, concentrating around her throat and face. The Viridian confluence acknowledges your welcome, came the translated response. Her voice in the earpiece sounded melodic yet precise. We seek knowledge and peaceful exchange. The formal introductions continued according to protocol. Lee presented each human diplomat, while Tai introduced her delegation. The tension in the room gradually eased as basic diplomatic pleasantries were exchanged. When Tay approached the display of Earth artifacts arranged on a side table, Lee moved closer to explain them. These represent different Earth cultures and regions, he said, gesturing toward the collection. Tad leaned forward to examine a small jade figurine. As she moved, the light from overhead caught her features in a particular way. The patterns on her skin shifted into configurations Lee hadn't seen before, spiraling designs that reminded him of stellar formations. The effect was mesmerizing. Something in that moment bypassed years of diplomatic training. Perhaps it was the way the patterns resembled the night sky, or how her movements seemed to flow like water. Whatever the reason, Lee spoke without thinking. "You're quite beautiful," he said softly. The words left his mouth before his brain could intervene. Immediately, he knew he'd made a mistake. The diplomatic handbook specifically warned against personal comments about appearance. The room fell into complete silence. Every Viridian froze in place, their attention locked on him. Min stiffened beside him. The human diplomats exchanged alarmed glances. Tay's reaction was most dramatic. The subtle patterns on her skin ceased their gentle movements and suddenly pulsed with intense blue light. The glow seemed to emanate from deep within her body, as if she'd become a living beacon. Lee's heartbeat thundered in his ears. He'd violated protocol on their first meeting. Years of preparation, ruined by a thoughtless compliment. "Commander," Min whispered, her voice tight with concern. The Viridian delegation remained motionless, their eyes fixed on him. The patterns on their skin now pulsed in synchronized rhythm with Ta's. Lee swallowed hard, his throat suddenly dry. The weight of potentially destroying humanity's relationship with a new species settled on his shoulders. His mind raced for something to say that might salvage the situation. But Ta spoke first, her voice now different, deeper, more resonant. The translator struggled, producing fragmented words about recognition and ancient protocols. Whatever was happening, it wasn't in any briefing material. Lee had made a terrible mistake, and he had no idea how to fix it. The intense blue light from Ta's skin cast strange shadows across the conference room. Lee stood frozen, afraid to move or speak again. The other humans looked equally alarmed, their faces tight with concern. June, the expedition's cultural advisor, pushed through the group and reached Lee's side. His normal calm expression had been replaced with wide-eyed urgency. "Commander Lee," June whispered, leaning close to Lee's ear. "Do you realize what you've done?" Lee's mouth went dry. Diplomatic incidents could end careers, or worse, damage humanity's standing among the stars. Offended her deeply. He guessed, his stomach sinking with each passing second. "No," Jun said, surprising him. In Viridian culture, commenting on another's appearance is not casual small talk. It's a sacred declaration. You've initiated what they call a soul bond ritual. Lee blinked rapidly, trying to process this information. A what? Their cultural briefing mentioned it only briefly. June explained hurriedly. For Viridians, to truly see someone's beauty is to perceive their essence, their soul. It's reserved for their most significant relationships. Before Lee could respond, Ta moved toward him. The blue glow had transformed, her skin now cycling through complex patterns of light, spirals, waves, and geometric forms that seemed to flow like liquid across her tall frame. The other Viridians had stepped back, forming a circle around them. "You see my true self," she said, her melodic voice carrying throughout the chamber. The translator couldn't fully capture the emotional resonance in her tone, but even humans could sense its importance. "This is unexpected, but I accept your perception." Lee's heart raced. "There's been a misunderstanding," he started to explain. "On Earth, commenting on appearance is often just a casual." But his words faltered as several Viridian officials moved to positions around the room. They began making musical sounds, their skin patterns synchronizing in what appeared to be some kind of ceremonial response. Min approached from behind, her face pale. "Commander, should we intervene? The Admiral will be expecting a standard first contact report." "Not. Whatever this is." Lee shook his head slightly. "Let's not make things worse." "June, what's happening now?" "They appear to be acknowledging the soul bond," Jun said, watching the Viridians with fascination. Their cultural materials suggested this is a significant honor in their society. Two Viridian attendants approached Ta, presenting her with a small crystal object that glowed with the same patterns as her skin. She held it reverently before extending it toward Lee. "What exactly does a soul bond entail?" Lee whispered to June, not moving to take the offered crystal. "I'm not entirely sure," June admitted, his scholarly confidence wavering. "The briefing materials were incomplete, but it seems you're about to find out." The human delegation watched in a mixture of horror and fascination as Lee reluctantly accepted the crystal. It felt warm in his hand, and to his surprise, began to pulse with light in rhythm with his heartbeat. "The perception ritual begins," announced an older Viridian, his voice deep and resonant. "Two beings, two worlds, one recognition." Ta placed her long fingers gently against the crystal in Lee's hand. "In accepting this bond, you will know me, and I will know you. This is the way of understanding between different souls." Lee looked helplessly at his team. The diplomatic training manuals had never covered accidental sacred bonds with alien species. "Should I refuse?" he asked June quietly. "I wouldn't recommend it," Jum said, watching the Viridians' expectant faces. "This could be the most direct path to meaningful cultural exchange, or a terrible diplomatic incident if rejected. The choice is yours, Commander." Lee took a deep breath and looked at Ta's luminescent eyes. What had begun as a simple compliment had veered into uncharted territory. First contact had just become far more complicated than anyone had anticipated. "I accept," Lee said finally, his voice steadier than he felt. "Though I must admit, I don't fully understand what I'm agreeing to." Ta's skin brightened. "Understanding is the purpose of the bond, Commander Lee. That is why it exists." The journey to the Viridian homeworld took 3 days in Earth time. Lee spent most of it learning hurried lessons from June about Viridian customs. The rest of the human delegation remained aboard the Pathfinder *, sending only Lee and June to what the Admiral now called the diplomatic incident. "This isn't exactly what we planned for first contact," Admiral Park had said before their departure. "But sometimes the path to understanding takes unexpected turns." Lee now stood in a vast crystal dome that rose hundreds of feet above the Viridian capital city. Sunlight filtered through the translucent structure, creating rainbow patterns across the polished floor. He felt strange in the traditional Viridian garments he'd been given, a flowing robe that seemed to shimmer like their skin, made from a fabric unlike anything on Earth. The robes helped conduct the energy of the bond, Ta had explained when presenting them. Now she stood 10 paces away, wearing ceremonial attire that enhanced the light patterns flowing across her skin. Around them, a circle of Viridian elders watched in silence. Their skin patterns moved in slow, synchronized waves. "Are you certain about this?" June whispered. "The Admiral only asked for basic diplomatic relations, not whatever this ritual is." "Too late to back out now," Lee replied. "Besides, I'm curious." Ta had explained that his compliment required verification through what they called the challenge of perspectives, a ritual where both participants truly experienced each other's view of the world. The concept seemed simple enough in theory, but the practice remained mysterious. An elder Viridian named Kyung stepped forward. His skin showed deeper, more complex patterns than the others, marking his advanced age and wisdom. "For thousands of cycles, the perception ritual has united our people in understanding," Kyung announced. "Today, we witness something unprecedented. A human joins our most sacred tradition." Lee tried to appear confident despite his racing heart. The significance of this moment wasn't lost on him. He represented all of humanity in something no human had experienced before. "The challenge begins," announced Kyung, raising his long arms. 2 attendants approached, carrying a crystal similar to the one from the ship, but much larger. They placed it between Lee and Tai, where it began pulsing with gentle light. "Place your hands on the crystal," Tai instructed softly, "and open your mind to what comes." Lee hesitantly placed his palms against the cool surface of the crystal. Immediately, it warmed under his touch and began glowing brighter. Ta placed her hands opposite his, their fingers nearly touching around the crystal's circumference. At first, nothing happened. Lee wondered if he was doing something wrong. Then suddenly, like diving into warm water, he felt his consciousness expanding. Images and emotions not his own flowed into his mind. He saw a child with luminescent skin playing along shores of silver sand under 3 moons. He felt the excitement and discipline of diplomatic training, the countless hours studying languages and customs of other species. Most strikingly, he experienced the mixture of fear and hope Ta had felt before meeting humans, beings known to be unpredictable and emotional. He realized he was experiencing Ta's memories, feeling them as if they were his own. The sensation was overwhelming yet intimate in a way he couldn't have imagined. Simultaneously, he knew Ta was experiencing his memories, his childhood in Seoul, his years of service, his nervousness about this mission. Lee felt strangely exposed yet connected in a way that transcended language or cultural barriers. The exchange lasted minutes or hours. Lee couldn't tell. When it finally faded, he found himself kneeling on the floor, breathing heavily. Ta knelt opposite him, her skin glowing with soft blue light. Kyung approached slowly, his expression solemn. "In all our history," he said, his voice carrying through the dome, "no off-worlder has participated in this ritual. Yet your perception was true, Commander. You saw her beauty when others see only strangeness." Lee looked up at Tai, seeing her differently now. He understood the patterns on her skin as expressions of emotion and thought, as natural to her as facial expressions were to humans. "I didn't know what I was seeing," Lee admitted, "but something in me recognized something in you." "That is the essence of the soul bond," Kyung explained. Recognition beyond understanding. Lee realized his accidental compliment had opened a door no human had crossed before. This wasn't just diplomatic relations. It was something deeper, a true connection between species. "What happens now?" he asked. Tay's skin rippled with new patterns Lee could now partially interpret. Hope, curiosity, and something like joy. "Now," she said, "we truly begin to know each other." The twin moons of the Viridian homeworld cast silver light across the famous gardens of reflection. Lee walked beside Tai along a winding path bordered by plants that seemed alive with gentle light. Every leaf and flower pulsed with soft bioluminescence, creating a landscape that looked like a living star field. "Amazing," Lee said, reaching out to touch a delicate bloom that changed color at his approach. "We have bioluminescent plants on Earth, but nothing like this. Our ancestors cultivated these gardens over thousands of years," Tai explained. "They respond to emotions and thoughts. The colors you see now reflect your wonder." A week had passed since the challenge of perspectives. Lee had spent each day in meetings with Viridian officials, often serving as a bridge between the human diplomatic team and their hosts. The connection formed through the soul bond had changed everything. "The trade discussions are moving forward faster than anyone expected," Lee said. "Admiral Park is pleased." Tay's skin rippled with patterns Lee now recognized as amusement. "Your admiral does not understand why the council trusts humans so quickly." "I'm not sure I understand it either," Lee admitted. "A week ago, we were complete strangers." They stopped at a small pool where glowing creatures similar to Earth's dragonflies danced above the surface. Todd gestured for Lee to sit on a bench carved from what appeared to be a single crystal. "Our people believed humans could only see surfaces," Tai explained as they watched the aerial display. "We studied your transmissions, your art, your literature. Everything suggested beings focused on external appearance." "That's often true," Lee acknowledged. "Yet your recognition of my beauty wasn't about my physical form, but something deeper you sensed," she continued. "You perceived what we call the inner light, the essence that makes each being unique." Lee remembered his impulsive words that started all this. "I didn't know what I was doing," he admitted. "It was just something about the way your patterns moved reminded me of stars being born." Tai tilted her head, her luminescent eyes studying him. "Intention doesn't matter in perception," she replied. "You saw something true, regardless. That is why the soul bond formed." A soft chime sounded from Lee's communication device. Another message from the Pathfinder *, no doubt. The diplomatic teams had been working around the clock, making unprecedented progress on trade agreements, cultural exchange protocols, and shared research initiatives. "Your accidental insight created something valuable," Ta said. "The Council believes this connection proves humans are capable of deeper understanding than we assumed. It has created trust between our species." The path ahead opened into a circular clearing where other Viridians strolled among spectacular arrangements of light-bearing plants. Several nodded respectfully to Ta and Lee as they passed. "I've noticed people treat us differently now," Lee observed. "After the ritual, I mean. Soul bonds are rare even among our own kind," Tai explained. "To form one with an off-worlder is unprecedented. Some see it as an important sign." Lee had noticed changes in himself as well. Since the ritual, he occasionally caught glimpses of Ta's emotions, faint impressions that seemed to float at the edge of his consciousness. June had been fascinated, taking detailed notes for future diplomatic training. "Tomorrow you return to your ship," Ta said, her skin displaying ripples of blue that Lee now recognized as a complex emotion somewhere between sadness and hope. "Yes," Lee confirmed. "The Admiral wants a full report, and the preliminary agreements need to be reviewed by Earth's Coalition Council. But the connection remains," she added, reaching out to touch the crystal pendant Lee now wore, a smaller version of the one from the ritual. "What happens now?" Lee asked, watching the patterns on her skin shift to something he hadn't seen before. "Something neither of our species has experienced before," she answered, her skin glowing with new patterns Lee was beginning to understand meant anticipation. She held out her hand, revealing a small device unlike any Viridian technology he'd seen so far. "This contains our star charts," she explained, "including locations we have never shared with any other species. The Council believes the soul bond makes you trustworthy beyond normal diplomatic protocols." Lee understood the significance of this gesture. "This goes beyond our mission parameters," he said carefully. "Yes," Tai agreed, "but sometimes the most important discoveries lie beyond planned parameters." 1 year had passed since Lee's accidental compliment had changed the course of human-Viridian relations. The Pathfinder had returned to Earth, bringing news of the unexpected diplomatic breakthrough. What followed were months of careful negotiations, cultural exchanges, and the gradual building of trust between two very different civilizations. Today, Lee stood in the grand meeting chamber of Earth's diplomatic center in Geneva. The room looked much different from the utilitarian conference room of the Pathfinder where he had first met Ta. Tall windows revealed the snow-capped Alps in the distance. Delegates from 12 Earth nations filled one side of the chamber, while Viridian representatives occupied the other. Lee touched the crystal pendant he always wore now. The connection it represented had become the foundation for something greater than anyone had imagined. "Nervous?" asked Admiral Park, who had become Lee's strongest supporter over the past year. "A little," Lee admitted. "This is bigger than me now." "It always was," the Admiral replied. "You just happened to be the one who stumbled into making history." The doors at the far end of the chamber opened. A hush fell over the assembled delegates as the Viridian procession entered. Unlike their first meeting, when the aliens had seemed strange and otherworldly, Lee now saw them with different eyes. He recognized the subtle patterns in their skin as expressions of hope, pride, and excitement. At the head of the procession walked Ta. She wore formal attire that Lee now knew marked her new position. When they had last parted at the spaceport on her homeworld, she had been a cultural emissary. Now she entered wearing the insignia of High Ambassador, the highest diplomatic rank in Viridian society. Lee's breath caught. Through their soul bond, he felt a faint echo of her emotions, pride mixed with genuine affection. The Earth officials rose as the Viridian delegation approached the central table where the treaty documents awaited. This agreement would establish the first formal alliance between humans and Viridians, a framework for trade, scientific exchange, and mutual defense that could shape centuries to come. Ta stepped forward, her skin glowing with patterns Lee had come to understand over the past year. She looked directly at him as she approached. "Commander Lee," she said, her voice clear in the silent chamber. "You once saw my beauty when others saw only strangeness." She spoke in English now, having learned the language over the past year. "Today, I declare before both our peoples that I see yours." As she spoke, her skin illuminated with an intricate pattern that Lee recognized as their highest honor, one typically reserved for their most revered leaders. The assembled delegates, understanding the significance of the gesture, broke into applause. Lee bowed in the Viridian manner he had practiced. "The honor is shared, High Ambassador." They moved to the treaty table together. Earth's Secretary General joined them, smiling at the historic moment about to unfold. "A compliment between our species once caused confusion," Tai announced to the assembly. "Now it bridges worlds." As cameras flashed and recorded the moment for posterity, Lee and Tai signed their names to the document that would bind their civilizations together. The Secretary General added his signature, completing the ceremony. "The United Nations of Earth welcomes this historic partnership," the Secretary announced. As the formal part of the ceremony concluded and delegates began to mingle, Ta moved closer to Lee. "Did you ever imagine this outcome when you spoke those words on your ship?" she asked quietly. Lee shook his head. "I thought I'd ruined everything." Instead, you saw something real," she finished. "That is the true foundation of diplomacy, seen beyond appearances to what matters." Later, as the celebration continued around them, Lee found a moment of quiet reflection. He watched humans and Viridians talking, sharing stories, building connections that would last generations. From a simple mistake had come understanding that diplomatic handbooks could never have created. The soul bond had changed him personally as well. He understood now that perception shaped reality, that seeing beauty in difference could transform potential conflict into connection. Two unexpected compliments, Admiral Park said, appearing beside him with 2 glasses of champagne. Lee accepted the glass with a smile. And to whatever comes next. Through their bond, he felt Ta's awareness turn toward him from across the room. The future between their worlds would be complex and challenging, but it would be built on something genuine, a moment of true perception that had bridged the gap between stars.